Did you know that nearly 4 out of 10 people on this planet still haven't had the chance to hear the central message of the Christian faith?
Wow. 4 out of 10.
Ten.
Yeah, it's a staggering statistic. It really makes you pause, doesn't it?
It really does.
We often visualize global missions through the lens of, country borders.
Yeah.
But what if the most crucial understanding lies, well, beneath those lines?
That's precisely the core of the challenge. And our source for this deep dive, the unfinished task, prioritizing the unreached, it really unpacks this brilliantly.
Okay.
It argues that the real measure of our global efforts isn't about, geopolitical reach, but something much more profound. It's about connecting with distinct people groups.
Exactly. And that's our mission for you in this deep dive, right? To explore why focusing on these people groups, think of tight-knit ethnic communities, remote tribes, or even cultural segments within larger populations, why that's so vital for truly effective engagement.
We'll see how this perspective, which is deeply rooted in the biblical concept of ethne, offers a richer, maybe more complete picture of what it means to take the gospel to the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Because for generations, mission work has often been charted, by countries. Progress was reported in terms of nations entered or churches established within specific state lines.
Right, and the source points out how potentially misleading that can be.
Totally.
The real question, it contends, isn't just how many national flags have been planted, but are we genuinely reaching those unique ethnic and cultural groups, those ethne we find in Scripture?
Exactly. It's like celebrating reaching, say, China, overlooks the hundreds, maybe thousands of distinct languages and cultures thriving within its borders, many completely untouched by the gospel.
That's a great example.
And what's truly illuminating is how the modern world, with its advanced technology, incredible global research, and just readily available data, offers us an unparalleled understanding of where the greatest spiritual needs actually lie.
So we know more now than ever before.
We do. The 1040 window, for instance, really emerges from this data as a region where spiritual engagement is minimal amidst pretty significant darkness.
This brings up a really powerful question, doesn't it? With all the incredible resources at our fingertips, digital platforms, sophisticated research, translation tools, you name it, why are we still seeing such a massive gap?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
These aren't just supplementary tools anymore. They really represent essential avenues for connection.
Yeah.
Exactly. And this highlights the immense potential of prioritizing unreached people groups, or UPGs. By making this our focal point, we unlock, concrete actions.
Like what?
Well, the source details data-informed mission strategies, the absolutely crucial role of empowering local indigenous leaders, and the strategic deployment of media that's actually tailored to specific groups.
It even makes you wonder about your own surroundings, doesn't it? These UPGs might be closer than we think.
Oh, for sure.
Perhaps within your own city or even neighborhood. The source uses this phrase, hiding in plain sight, which really sticks with you.
It's true.
Think about, a new restaurant in your area, run by people from a different cultural background. Have you ever thought about their spiritual heritage? Whether they have access to the gospel in a way that truly resonates with them?
That could be a UPG right there. Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And the source underscores that this isn't just some subtle theological tweak. It's a fundamental strategic realignment.
Okay.
And it has profound implications, especially within that 1040 window we mentioned. The potential for the gospel to take firm root and for the global church to pioneer truly impactful work in these underserved areas is, well, it's exponentially greater.
Think about it, the advanced tools, the detailed research, these cutting-edge digital mission strategies, they're all available now.
They are.
The divide between those who've heard and those who haven't is shrinking, but, only for those who actively engage, right?
That's the key. Active engagement. And the source doesn't frame this as some overwhelming burden, but actually as the greatest opportunity for transformative impact maybe in the history of global missions.
Wow. That's a bold claim. It is. But what's so compelling is that a focus on people groups goes beyond just, individual conversions. It aims to penetrate to the very core of a community.
That's so.
Influencing generations, shaping cultural values. The ultimate outcome is hopefully a widespread movement of disciples carrying the gospel to places it has literally never reached before.
But there's a real urgency emphasized in the source, isn't there? It's not just passive.
Definitely. Ignoring the unreached isn't just presented as a missed opportunity. It represents, well, a failure to fully embrace the mission we've been entrusted with.
Okay, so shifting our focus a bit, the deep dive then examines the Great Commission itself, Matthew 28.19.
Hmm.
Our traditional understanding often centers on spreading the gospel to every nation, which seems pretty straightforward on the surface.
Right. But let's dig a little deeper into that. The source suggests there's a more nuanced essence to this command, one that really emphasizes relational engagement.
Okay, so not just ticking off countries on a global checklist.
Precisely. There's a theological reframing around that phrase, all nations, panta ta ethne, in the original Greek.
Right, the ethne again.
Yeah. It's less about a geopolitical inventory and more about actively seeking out and connecting with untouched hearts and minds.
So seeing the unreached not as mere statistics.
Exactly. But as communities yearning for a relational, compassionate connection, think of it as moving beyond simply broadcasting a message to truly entering into a conversation, a relationship.
So it's moving away from like a transactional mindset of just delivering information
Yeah.
towards a more holistic approach to discipleship that considers the cultural, the social, the spiritual realities of these communities.
Exactly. And what's fascinating to consider is the evolution of what has driven Christian missions historically.
What do you mean?
Well, alongside a deep conviction to share the faith, there were, as the source gently points out, often unintentional impositions of cultural norms, sometimes intertwined with, historical contexts of conquest.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay. That's a sensitive point.
It is. And this is where it gets really interesting. The modern approach, or the one being advocated for, is increasingly centered on invitation.
Invitation.
Yeah, a more respectful, culturally sensitive, and relationship-driven way of connecting with people.
And in our interconnected world, the integration of faith and action seems key.
Definitely. Innovative communication methods, digital platforms provide unprecedented avenues to connect with unreached peoples within their own cultural contexts.
Yet the source reminds us that even with these advancements, the core principle remains, right? Embodying the love, grace, and mercy of Christ in every interaction.
That's the heart of it. It's a delicate balance between leveraging new tools and maintaining the heart of the message.
So it translates into acts of kindness, service.
And what the source beautifully terms unyielding hope. The hope that every unreached heart will one day experience the fullness of God's grace. The journey it emphasizes is continuous, demanding unwavering dedication and profound empathy.
It certainly sounds like the landscape of missions is evolving significantly. It's not just about those familiar lines on the world map anymore, is it?
Not at all. What's truly insightful is this shift from measuring mission success by geopolitical borders to a much more detailed focus on distinct people groups, identified by their shared language, ethnicity, and cultural heritage.
Okay, let's break that down. The source highlights how detailed demographic research is now revealing pockets of unreached individuals, even within countries considered reached.
Right.
This really challenges our traditional understanding of what constitutes a mission field. So instead of just looking at a country as a whole, we need to identify these distinct cultural islands almost within it.
Precisely. It necessitates this people-centric approach, one that truly respects the inherent diversity of human identity,
Yeah.
rather than just focusing on the political map.
And the source revisits that crucial phrase, panta ta ethne, in Matthew 28.19, really hammering home that the Greek word ethne specifically refers to these ethnic groups.
Mm-hmm. It transcends political boundaries. It's a call for a mission that truly permeates the cultural and spiritual fabric of every single community.
If we consider the bigger picture, this shift requires a much deeper level of engagement, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. We need to move beyond just surface-level metrics and truly understand the unique contexts, the challenges, the hopes, even the dreams that shape each of these groups.
Only then can we effectively communicate the message of Christ in ways that actually resonate with their lived experiences.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really practical. The source then delves into some ways to implement this shift, emphasizing the importance of cultural immersion.
So really understanding the daily lives and perspectives of the people.
Yes. And it also stresses the significance of local ministry partnerships, working alongside indigenous leaders who have that deep cultural understanding and community-centered discipleship, addressing the holistic needs of individuals and their communities.
And in today's world, we can't overlook technology and global networks, can we?
Definitely not. The source discusses leveraging these tools to connect with those truly isolated communities, all while maintaining a deep respect for their linguistic and cultural nuances.
This awakening in Christian mission, as the source calls it, marks a really important transition then.
It really does. It redirects our attention from broad national categories to the fundamental cultural and linguistic identities that define people.
Okay, let's unpack that further. It's a real departure from the older way of thinking, right? Where maybe celebrating reaching a nation was seen as enough.
Right, without truly examining the reality on the ground, the countless untouched cultural enclaves within those very nations.
And you mentioned research earlier.
Yes, what's illuminating is how global research, particularly in the latter half of the 20th century, really began to underscore the need to approach mission, not just geographically, but through the lens of these cultural and linguistic groupings. It was a real paradigm shift in understanding the task.
And the source keeps coming back to that biblical interpretation of ethnos in the Great Commission,
Reinforcing that it refers to these people groups defined by ethnicity, language, culture. It's this people-focused strategy that's so essential.
connecting this to a broader narrative. You mentioned Babel earlier.
Yeah, the source even draws a fascinating parallel to the Tower of Babel story. That scattering of humanity, it suggests, wasn't just punishment. It actually laid the groundwork for redemption to eventually touch every distinct cultural identity. God's plan included diversity from the start.
That's a really interesting perspective. So the source explores both the theory and the practice of this awakening.
It does. Theoretically, it's about genuinely embracing the beautiful diversity of the mission field, recognizing the unique value each culture brings.
And practically.
Practically, this translates into things like deep cultural immersion, forging localized partnerships with indigenous leaders, and adopting a holistic approach to ministry that addresses every facet of life, moving beyond superficial outreach to build deep, lasting connections.
So when we talk about the unseen millions, what specific picture should come to mind? It sounds like the source wants us to really grasp the scale.
Well, what's truly revealing is that the concept of unreached people groups, UPGs, gives us a much clearer lens, a way to view the incredible diversity of humanity and the profound need that exists beyond our usual maps or headlines.
Okay, let's define that clearly again. The source gives a concise definition of a UPG.
Right. It's a people group that lacks an indigenous community of believing Christians with the resources and ability to effectively evangelize their own people.
So it's not just about the presence of any Christians.
No, it's about a self-sustaining indigenous witness within that specific group.
Okay.
And the sheer scale of this challenge, as the source illustrates with statistics, is really sobering. Across continents like Asia, you find vast numbers of distinct ethnic groups where the Christian population might hover below, say, 2%.
Wow, that really puts the task into perspective.
It does.
Mm.
And the source consistently brings it back to the biblical foundation, doesn't it? The Great Commission and that word ethnos again.
And also the overarching narrative of redemption, where God consistently reaches out to those on the margins, the overlooked.
Exactly. If we consider the bigger picture, the source emphasizes that these statistics aren't just abstract numbers. They represent real individuals, people, with their own unique histories, traditions, aspirations. It puts a very human face on these figures.
And this is where it gets really interesting, right? The source explores the implications of these numbers for our mission strategies.
Yes, highlighting the need to fundamentally rethink how we approach outreach, how we allocate our resources, and how we foster greater innovation in our methods.
So what are the practical steps?
Well, it calls for things like that deep cultural immersion we discussed, empowering those indigenous leaders on the ground and strategically leveraging the power of technology to bridge these gaps. Looking beyond the numbers and engaging with these communities as individuals with their own rich, untold stories.
Now, the 1040 window, we hear that term quite often in mission circles. The source seems to give it significant attention. What exactly is it, and why is it so critical here?
The 1040 window is identified as a particularly significant region, not just geographically, but in terms of intense spiritual need, deep-rooted cultural histories, and often a long history of resistance to the gospel.
Okay, let's break that down. The source outlines the challenging realities, the socioeconomic issues like poverty, instability, limited access to education, healthcare. But it also underscores the deeply ingrained cultural and historical identities that often perceive the gospel as something foreign, maybe even a threat to their way of life.
Right. And what's truly insightful is how the source connects this back to that Tower of Babel narrative again, that intentional diversity God orchestrated, that dispersion of people. It really positions these unreached communities within the 1040 1040 window as absolutely central to God's overarching redemptive plan. They're not an afterthought, they're integral.
This is where it gets really interesting. The source then delves into the real obstacles and the potential opportunities in what they call frontier missions within this 1040 window.
Yeah, things like physical and cultural isolation, political unrest, economic hardship. These present massive challenges.
But there are opportunities, too.
Precisely. The source also highlights the pioneering efforts that are making a difference. Things like deep cultural immersion, extreme sensitivity to local customs, adopting a holistic ministry approach that addresses diverse needs, and crucially, valuing and empowering indigenous leadership from within these communities.
And it seems the source really wants us to reconsider our metrics for success in this context, doesn't it?
Totally. Shifting away from simply counting conversions to truly assessing the depth of transformation taking place within these communities. It takes time.
So it's a long game.
Absolutely. It emphasizes that this particular mission field serves as a powerful testament to God's inclusive love, a love that reaches into the most challenging corners of human experience, transcending all barriers. It's a call to reimagine our approach to the Great Commission, look beyond borders and stats, and recognize the individual lives waiting.
The 1040 window also presents a very unique set of challenges when it comes to just access, doesn't it?
That's a crucial distinction, yes. The source describes the 1040 window as a region facing formidable barriers to spiritual outreach, often due to strict governmental controls and these deeply entrenched cultural systems.
Okay, let's unpack that. It explains how, in many of these societies, religious identity is so tightly woven into national and ethnic identity.
That introducing new spiritual concepts can be viewed as a direct assault on the very foundations of their society. It's perceived as destabilizing.
What's fascinating is the parallel the source draws to the early history of Christianity, like the underground church.
It highlights this principle of hiddenness and gradual revelation. The idea that sometimes the gospel takes root and spreads in very quiet, unseen ways, patient ways.
This is where it gets really interesting. The source then offers some very practical strategies for navigating these limitations. Approaches like contextual and discrete ministry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not engaging in overtly public evangelism where it's restricted or culturally insensitive. It also emphasizes the critical role of empowering local believers who already understand the cultural and legal landscape.
And the wise use of technology, right? Secure communication networks to maintain connections and share resources.
Absolutely. And it seems vital to adjust our expectations of what progress looks like in these environments, doesn't it?
How so?
Focusing on the slow, steady growth of maybe underground communities, the gradual transformation of hearts. It demands a great deal of patience and perseverance.
So success isn't measured by immediate, visible results necessarily.
Not always. It's often about the long-term impact and the persistent growth of faith under very challenging circumstances.
But the source also makes it clear that the unreached aren't only located within the 1040 window, are they?
No, definitely not. There are hidden frontiers in every corner of the globe. It really broadens our perspective.
So highlighting that unreached individuals and groups exist globally, even within nations we might think of as predominantly Christian.
Exactly. Think of indigenous communities in North America, maybe marginalized immigrant populations in Europe, or isolated tribal groups down in South America. They exist everywhere.
Okay, let's unpack that. The source reiterates that fundamental principle. Every single culture has its own unique narrative, and this ties back to that biblical mandate of ethnos encompassing every distinct cultural group, regardless of where they are geographically.
And what's truly inspiring is the connection the source makes to parables, like the hidden treasure, or the idea of persistent faith. These stories really encourage us in the effort to engage with these often overlooked frontiers.
This is where it gets really interesting. The practical methods for reaching these groups, whether in the 1040 window or closer to home, seem to revolve around that same core approach, right?
Yeah, contextualized and relational ministry, empowering local leaders who get the nuances, and, once again, the strategic use of technology.
And redefining mission success seems crucial here as well.
Absolutely. Moving beyond mere numbers to focus on relational, sustainable, and truly transformative change that embraces the incredible diversity of God's creation.
Now, in our increasingly interconnected world, technology seems like such an indispensable tool for reaching these remote corners. The source certainly emphasizes its importance.
He really does. The source presents technology as a remarkably powerful modern vehicle for sharing the gospel, drawing parallels to, transformative historical innovations like the Roman road system or even the printing press.
Okay, let's explore that. It talks about how technology is literally breaking down geographical barriers, giving examples like solar-powered audio Bibles reaching communities without electricity.
Yeah, or satellite communication connecting incredibly remote areas, places we couldn't easily reach before.
And it's not just about delivering the message, is it? Technology also helps with contextualization.
Totally. By providing access to information in people's native languages and in formats that are culturally relevant to them. Imagine someone hearing the gospel for the first time in their heart language through an audio recording. The impact is just profound.
The source even connects this back to some really foundational theological concepts, doesn't it? Like the incarnation.
God stepping directly into our human culture.
Pentecost.
Right, God reaching every ethnos in their own language. Technology allows for that kind of specific linguistic reach today.
And it provides concrete examples of missional innovation in action.
Yes. Bible apps in countless languages, those solar-powered audio tools we mentioned, using encrypted messaging for digital discipleship in restricted areas, even online training programs for indigenous leaders who might not be able to travel.
Of course, with any powerful tool, there are potential downsides, aren't there? The source does touch on some of those challenges and warnings.
That's a critical point. The source acknowledges the potential for disconnection, the idea that digital interaction should supplement, not replace, genuine human relationships.
Right, it can't be only digital.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And it also raises important ethical and security considerations, especially when operating in sensitive or restrictive environments. We have to be wise.
So it's about using technology as a bridge, a tool to enhance the mission, but not letting it become the mission itself.
That's a great way to put it. And the source envisions a future where the church cultivates a missional imagination, wisely stewarding technology in a way that's guided by the Spirit. It even refers to this digital space as a potential digital upper room.
Wow, digital upper room. I like that. Echoing Pentecost.
Yeah, echoing the unexpected ways the Spirit moved them.
That leads us perfectly into the concept of digital evangelism itself, taking the gospel across borders without physical limitations. The source seems particularly optimistic about its potential.
It really is. It positions the internet as the Roman road of our time, an unparalleled infrastructure for carrying the gospel across all kinds of boundaries, geographical, linguistic, even ideological.
Okay, let's delve into that. It highlights how we can now achieve incredibly targeted outreach through online platforms.
Yeah, giving examples of connecting with individuals in places like North Africa or rural India through very specific digital content tailored to their interest and context.
And the source emphasizes the absolute necessity of creating content that is not only in the target group's language, but also deeply relevant to their culture, right?
Absolutely critical. It has to resonate with their worldview and address their specific questions and needs. Generic content often falls flat.
This is where it gets really interesting. The source also discusses how technology is actually accelerating the crucial work of Bible translation.
Yes. Through advancements like AI and crowdsourcing, it emphasizes the immense power of people hearing the gospel in their heart language, the language they understand best, the language that speaks directly to their soul.
And digital tools are playing a vital role in empowering indigenous leaders, too.
Definitely. By providing them with readily accessible training and resources that they might otherwise lack. This helps build local capacity for long-term sustainable impact.
And it sounds like data analysis is becoming increasingly important in shaping mission strategy.
Helping us to actually map where unreached populations are concentrated and enabling us to adapt our approaches as needed for greater effectiveness.
So it's about moving from more general approaches to a much more data-informed strategy to maximize our impact.
Exactly. Smart strategy combined with spirit-led compassion.
Now, with all this discussion about the unreached, it naturally brings a strong sense of urgency to the forefront, doesn't it? The source definitely conveys a powerful call to action.
It absolutely does. It frames any delay in actively pursuing the Great Commission, not just as a strategic oversight, but as a deeply serious spiritual crisis.
Highlighting the eternal implications for the billions who pass away without ever having the opportunity to hear the gospel message.
Exactly. It's a sobering thought.
Okay, let's examine the foundation for this urgency. The source points to the biblical basis, right? Both in Jesus' original command, that word ethne, appearing again,
and in the powerful vision of Revelation 7.9, that incredible multitude from every tribe, tongue, and nation worshiping together. That's the end goal.
What's particularly thought-provoking is how the source addresses the Well, the discomfort that can sometimes arise when we truly focus on the unreached.
Yeah, because it often necessitates reevaluating our priorities, doesn't it?
Mm.
Potentially reallocating resources away from areas where the gospel's already pretty well established. That can be hard.
This is where it gets really interesting. The source challenges the notion of risk as a justifiable reason for inaction.
Especially when technology has now made so many previously inaccessible areas potentially reachable. The risks might be different, but reach is often possible now.
Right, and it highlights a really concerning statistic you mentioned earlier. Only a tiny fraction of global missions funding is currently directed towards reaching unreached people groups.
It's shockingly small. So the source calls for a significant strategic and spiritual reevaluation, emphasizing that this is a mission for the entire church. Every believer has a role to play.
But the mission field isn't solely over there, is it? The source also brings our focus much closer to home, discussing the concept of unreached neighbors.
That's such a profoundly important shift in perspective. The source emphasizes that unreached individuals and communities aren't just in distant lands. They reside right within our own societies.
Like immigrant communities, marginalized urban populations, often overlooked rural groups.
Exactly. People right next door, potentially.
Okay, let's clarify that. It redefines what unreached can signify in a local context, where mere physical proximity doesn't automatically mean someone has spiritual access.
Right. Because of cultural differences, language barriers, maybe even a lack of trust or connection, they're near, but still unreached.
What's illuminating is the theological basis the source provides. Incarnational ministry, Jesus, dwelling among us as the ultimate model for connecting with our unreached neighbors in our own communities.
Being present with people.
This is where it gets really interesting. The source explores why this local mission field often goes unnoticed by us.
Yeah, frequently it's due to our own cultural comfort zones and the homogeneity of our social circles. We tend to connect mostly with people who are, well, like us.
So how do we change that?
Well, it offers some very practical steps for intentionally loving our neighbors. Simple acts of observation and awareness of those around us, forming partnerships with local organizations already working with these communities, making an effort to learn even basic phrases in someone else's language.
And the powerful act of extending hospitality, just
Yeah.
inviting someone over.
Exactly. Simple but profound. And the source really calls on the local church to become a sending hub right where it is.
Rethinking its own structures and actively discipling believers to engage with the diversity within their own cities and towns.
Absolutely. It challenges us not to overlook this incredible opportunity that God has placed right in our midst. The Great Commission begins in our own neighborhoods.
So the fundamental question lingers, doesn't it? Why, despite all our modern advancements and understanding, do billions of people still remain unreached?
Yeah, the source delves into the reasons behind the silence that still echoes. It's a deeply important question.
And it explores the multifaceted answer.
It does. Examining factors ranging from geographical isolation and logistical hurdles to deeply ingrained cultural resistance and even spiritual blindness.
Okay, let's break that down. For each of these significant barriers, like the challenge of geographical isolation, the source also provides a practical application point, right?
Yeah.
Suggesting potential solutions.
Yes. Drawing from the source material to suggest things like the vital role of aviation ministries in reaching remote areas, for instance.
And it systematically addresses other barriers, like language differences, resource scarcity, political obstacles.
Exactly. Offering concrete ideas for how these can be overcome through approaches like culturally relevant communication, empowering local believers within those contexts, and strategically allocating resources where they are most needed.
It's a really comprehensive look at the complexities involved, isn't it?
It is. And it moves beyond simply identifying the problems to proposing actionable steps and potential solutions.
Reminding us that behind every barrier is a real person, a unique story.
And a soul longing to hear the good news. Understanding these obstacles isn't about assigning blame. It's about gaining clarity and seeing the world as God sees it, waiting, ready to be reached.
So with all these challenges and opportunities now laid out, how do we effectively strategize to reach the unreached in today's world? The source dedicates a section to these crucial approaches.
That's right. It frames this moment as a call to strategic compassion and bold mission, emphasizing the need to combine our deeply held biblical convictions with innovative and effective missional practices.
Okay, let's explore some of these key strategies. The first is people group-focused mission, a concept we've discussed quite a bit.
It's about specifically identifying those distinct cultural and linguistic communities, those ethne, and truly understanding their unique worldview. The example of India, with its over 2,000 distinct people groups, powerfully illustrates why this focused approach is so necessary. You can't just target India.
Right. That makes sense. What's next?
The next crucial strategy is indigenous leadership development, recognizing the incredible power and long-term impact of empowering local believers who already possess deep cultural understanding and a sustained presence.
And the example of Iran's church growth really highlights that.
It absolutely does. Growth often happens best from within, despite persecution.
Then there's the absolutely essential work of translation.
Getting the scriptures into people's heart language. The source highlights the ongoing work of organizations like Wycliffe and Seed Company and how technology is significantly accelerating this vital process.
And contextualization is key too, right?
Oh, huge. Communicating the timeless message of the gospel in a way that is clear and relevant within the specific cultural framework of the audience, rather than imposing foreign, often Western, practices, making Jesus relatable within their own understanding.
The source also introduces some perhaps less conventional but increasingly vital approaches, like business as mission.
Yeah, bam. Leveraging vocational skills and entrepreneurial endeavors to create opportunities for gospel witness in various professional and community contexts. It opens doors in places traditional missionaries might not reach.
And finally, digital evangelism, which we discussed.
Right, with its remarkable scalability and reach. The source provides compelling examples from North Africa and emphasizes the need for wise, culturally sensitive implementation coupled with effective follow-up and discipleship. It's not just about clicks, it's about connection.
It sounds like a truly comprehensive and multifaceted approach is required, strategically integrating all these diverse strategies.
Precisely. It's about being faithful stewards of all the resources and insights God has provided us to connect with every people group in a way that truly resonates with their hearts and minds.
Now, moving beyond specific strategies, the source delves into the very heart of the matter, doesn't it? It articulates a profound theological imperative to reach the unreached.
Absolutely. It frames missions not just as like a task to be completed, but as the very pulse of God's heart.
The Missio Dei.
Exactly. Rooted in God's fundamental missionary nature, the Missio Dei. It's about understanding that God himself is a sending God. His very nature is outgoing, reaching.
Okay, let's explore this theological foundation. The source traces this thread throughout Scripture.
Yes, beginning with God's initial call to Abraham to be a blessing to all nations, the recurring themes in the Psalms, the prophetic messages of Isaiah about being a light to the Gentiles.
Jesus' own earthly ministry focusing on the lost.
The explicit command of the Great Commission, and that ultimate panoramic vision in Revelation 7.9. It paints this powerful picture of a God who has always been intently focused on reaching all peoples.
What's particularly insightful is the analysis of the book of Jonah.
Yeah, it's far more than just a strange fish story, right?
Definitely.
It's a powerful illustration of God's expansive compassion that extends even to those we might consider outsiders, enemies even. And it's a pointed critique of any form of religious or cultural exclusivity. God cared about Nineveh.
This is where it gets really interesting. The source also examines the parable of the lost sheep in Luke 15.
Highlighting God's immense value for even the one who is missing. That speaks directly to the importance of reaching even the smallest and most isolated people groups. No one is insignificant in God's eyes.
And then connecting it back to that breathtaking vision in Revelation 7.9, it brings in those crucial, challenging questions from Romans 10.14.
How then will they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how are they to believe in him of whom they have never heard? And how are they to hear without someone preaching? It really underscores the indispensable role we play in God's redemptive plan.
So, what are the key practical implications for the church today arising from this theological imperative?
Well, the source outlines several crucial things. A critical reassessment of how we allocate our resources, time, money, people, to prioritize long-term investment in unreached areas.
Okay.
The vital need to mobilize the entire global church, recognizing the immense strength and growing influence of believers in the global South. This isn't just a Western task anymore.
A good point.
And a commitment to teaching the whole counsel of Scripture, consistently emphasizing its inherent missional heart. It's woven throughout.
It truly emphasizes the church actively reflecting its Savior by intentionally following him into the margins, both near and far.
Exactly. And that leads to this concept of renewing the global call, a call to reimagine our approach to mission in these often overlooked frontiers. The source presents this as a crucial moment to truly recalibrate our efforts.
Okay, let's explore this idea of renewal. It stresses the importance of actively prioritizing the forgotten.
Right, drawing once again on those powerful parables of the lost sheep, the lost coin, the lost son in Luke 15, underscoring that active pursuit and intentionality are absolutely key. We have to go after the lost.
And it speaks to the necessity of building sustainable relational networks.
Yes, mirroring the incarnation by moving beyond short-term engagements or projects to establishing an enduring presence and truly investing in empowering Indigenous leaders through authentic and mutually respectful partnerships, not just doing things for them, but with them.
And the source makes a really important distinction here, differentiating between the unreached and the unengaged.
Yes, that's critical. Unreached means minimal to no access to the gospel. Unengaged means there is currently no known, sustained gospel witness among that people group. No one is actively trying to establish a church there. These represent the truly hidden frontiers of mission.
So engagement in these areas requires deep listening, adapting communication.
And often strategically utilizing digital tools to foster community and connection where physical access is limited. True mission, it emphasizes, is about dwelling among, not just visiting or broadcasting from afar.
And as we've discussed, innovation and new technologies are indispensable in this endeavor, aren't they?
Definitely. The source refers to them as potential new wineskins for mission, while wisely cautioning that technology serves as a vital bridge, but is not the mission itself. The relationship, the presence is key.
And this renewed call requires cultivating a truly global perspective within the church.
Absolutely. Consistently teaching the biblical foundations for missions and actively learning from the vibrant faith and innovative approaches emerging from the global south, they have much to teach the Western Church.
So we arrive at what the source terms the hidden frontiers of mission, making that crucial distinction between simply being unreached and being entirely unengaged.
That's right. It uses the poignant example of maybe a refugee community, visible in some respects, yet often invisible in terms of genuine and intentional gospel engagement.
So they might be physically present, but not yet reached in a meaningful and culturally relevant way.
Exactly. Within reach, but beyond engagement currently.
Okay, let's delve deeper into that. The source stresses the paramount importance of genuine engagement.
Emphasizing presence and relationship building before explicit proclamation, mirroring Jesus' own ministry of dwelling among the people he came to serve, earning the right to be heard.
And it reframes the concept of the unfinished task not as an overwhelming burden,
But as a profound privilege, an incredible opportunity to actively participate in God's ongoing work of redemption in these often overlooked places.
This is where it gets really interesting. The source then outlines practical strategies for effectively engaging these hidden frontiers.
Yeah, prioritizing contextualized presence, focusing on deep relational discipleship, not just quick decisions. Strategically partnering with the local church wherever possible, thoughtfully embracing technological innovation, and fundamentally grounding all efforts in prayer-led initiatives.
And the ultimate call is for a renewed vision.
To truly see the unseen, to adopt the very eyes of Christ, and pursue these hidden frontiers with unwavering faithfulness and courageous boldness.
Finally, the source culminates in a powerful call to the entire global church to wholeheartedly embrace this still unfinished task.
Absolutely. It acknowledges the immense weight of the billions who remain unreached, but frames it as both a significant challenge and really a profound invitation to actively partner with God in his redemptive work.
Okay, let's unpack this final call. It reiterates the critical importance of shifting our primary focus from simply reaching countries
To intentionally engaging specific people groups, providing those compelling examples like the Fulani people across West Africa, the Uyghurs in Asia, the Sunni in Southeast Asia. Real groups, real needs.
And it emphasizes the inherent call to personal sacrifice.
It does. Drawing inspiration from the enduring example of figures like Hudson Taylor, who gave so much for China, and highlighting practical ways each of us can participate through prayer, through giving, and for some, even through going.
And it revisits the indispensable role of technology and innovation.
In breaking down persistent barriers through advancements in Bible translation, the effective use of digital evangelism, and the development of accessible mobile applications that put scripture and discipleship tools in people's hands.
Ultimately, it's a call to prioritize the forgotten, both the people themselves who have yet to hear,
And even the often overlooked segments of the global church, the forgotten church, in difficult places that needs encouragement and resources. It calls for a fundamental paradigm shift in how we allocate our resources and where we direct our collective attention.
So as we conclude this deep dive, the core understanding is really clear. The mission to reach the unreached is this incredibly complex, yes, but absolutely vital undertaking. It demands a fundamental shift in our perspective, moving beyond simply looking at geographical boundaries to truly focusing on distinct people groups.
Right, the ethne.
And it necessitates a willingness to embrace innovative strategies and even perhaps a spirit of personal sacrifice.
Absolutely. What's a powerful final thought stemming directly from our source material for you, our listeners, to consider is this. Think about the unreached people groups who might exist within your own sphere of influence.
Locally.
Yeah, your local community, your workplace, even the online spaces you participate in. What small but intentional step could you take this week to maybe build a bridge across a cultural divide or simply learn more about a different worldview?
That's a truly compelling challenge for each of us, a practical takeaway. And for those eager to explore this further, the source recommends delving into resources like the Joshua Project website.
Yeah, great resource for data.
Or connecting with organizations actively involved in Bible translation like Wycliffe or those working in digital missions. There are many ways to get involved.
Ultimately, this isn't a task that will be completed overnight, as it's an ongoing mission. But it's one with the potential for truly transformative impact on a global scale. When individuals, when churches choose to actively engage with this still unfinished work.